Just to show you a bunch of other fonts, I will show you the different glyph panels. I will, for this, remove all this, and I will click on the Radial that I haven't shown yet. So I will click on Radial and click on the Radial cloner. As you can see, with the C Radial font and the Radial cloner, you'll end up with a teeny cloner setup, really small, smaller than the other ones. But this is just because I have set up the glyph in a specific way to have the anchor point correctly placed inside the center of the ring. So if I just go in the scale and crank it up, you have now a cloner setup, which is way more interesting. So what it does is, with the C Radial, create some slices arranged on the ring. So with Moglyph C Radial selected, go in the add new glyphs, and again, here is what you have with the C Radial font. It's really cool too. So if, for instance, if I choose let's say 12 slice, you can have a teeny portion, a thicker version of this same portion, even thicker, a plain slice of a circle. For instance, I can select this one, and I have arranged all my glyphs in columns. So if you select, let's say, this nice flower, you will have to go at the top of the column and read the number here to make the exact same count in the cloner. So if I choose, for instance, the 12 portion of the circle here, like this, it doesn't work really nice just because the default Radial cloner has only 5 in its count. But since I have created this glyph here, I know that I have to put 12 in the clones, okay, in the count. So if I type 12 here, now I have a perfect circle sliced in 12 parts, which is really cool because after that you will be able to animate them with some effectors. So just to let you know what it does really quickly, I can select my cloner Radial, go inside the animate tab and choose, let's say, for instance, a formula one, and choose, you will see it a little bit later. You can do really cool things like this, for instance. And now you have this kind of effects which wouldn't be that easy to achieve in a procedural way. So really cool, really nice. It's just one example of what you can do with the awesome effectors. So you will learn about it a bit later. So keep looking at the actual generate tab for the moment. So this is it for the Radial font. I will continue with so you have seen the basic geometry, the spline, you have seen that, so I will re-demonstrate it really quickly. So this is my spline. I will click on the spline and the spline cloner, which is pretty cool. I can add my, I can select my Moglyph cloner spline and click on the add a new glyph and see how cool are these different glyph shapes. So if I choose, for instance, a barbed wire glyph, like this one, for instance, you can create really easily some barbed wire. If I go in my shape layer and increase just the stroke here. Okay, really cool. You can play, of course, with the color. Okay, and I can change the stroke as well to match the color of the clones. I can play with other glyph shapes just by playing with the number in the glyph 1 like this, and now you have a really nice barbed wire like this, and you can still go in the object group, choose to have less less clones, and yes, you have a really nice rig like this. You can still play with the path of your initial layer, which is for me the shape layer 1. Okay, and this is pretty cool. So I will undo this. I will recreate a new Moglyph Spline cloner from scratch. Okay, just like this. By default, this is always this chainmail. I will add a new glyph. Sorry, I have to select my Moglyph cloner spline, add new glyph, and now I can play with, let's say, yeah, this is a zip closing in 3 parts. So I click on it, and I can choose this one with a specific effector, but I will leave it for now as this is. So let's uncheck the visibility of the shape layer, and now I can add, let's say I can play with the scale of my clones. Going in the transform group, I can go in my object and add way more clones like this. Okay, and as you can see, I have created a really nice zip closing effect, which is pretty cool. I have created no, sorry, I won't talk about this now. Just re-click on the shape layer just to demonstrate the other glyphs. I can redo it for now. I can click on it, add new glyph. You have a really nice rig for light bulbs, which is pretty cool to make some fairy lights, for instance. So I can click on this one, which is the socket, and I can let's say I will click on this and have a bigger yes, a bigger clone size like this. I will choose the same color for my shape layer, stroke, and my Moglyph style, my Moglyph spline, sorry. Okay, and I will duplicate my Moglyph cloner, and now I can just, as you can see, the glyph that I've created is the 21 as a number. As you can see, I go over these glyphs, and this is a glyph 21. You'll find it like this, but in the duplicated layer that I've created here, I can now go in the following glyph, which is the 22 one, or 23 or 24, since the 3 glyphs here are just different shapes for the light bulbs. So let's try the glyph 22 for the second layer. I will go right here and try 22. Okay, perfect. And now it is really cool. As you can see, I can still again play with the handles and the path from my shape layer. All the glyphs update in the real time. And now I can go in the light bulbs here, okay, which is this Moglyph cloner here, and I can transform the, let's say, the color. I can add a stroke, so something like this. Okay, nothing too fancy. I will put it just below, just like this. I can change for another shape with 23, 24. This one's pretty cool too, as you can see. And I can, for instance, since this is a separated layer, go in the effects, stylize, glow, for instance. Okay, pretty cool. And for example, I can simply go inside my Moglyph clone Spline 2, which is again the light bulbs layer, and I can, for instance, go in animate and randomize a few options. You will see this a bit later. So in the effector, I can go in, if I reset it, the parameters, color, and check this, play with the hue, and now I have some nice light bulbs that are automatically animated, and of course I have to do the same for the stroke, since there is a stroke as well. So now this is really cool. Okay, pretty nice. I will come back a little bit later on the effectors. I haven't shown yet how it works. So pretty cool. Let's finish with other spline here. Okay, a new glyph. You have a nice electric shape, which is this one, and you can, if you want to, choose only one shape, one glyph, and you can go inside your transform 180, and now if I update the path, you have this nice electric wire like this. You can still play with the offset like this. Okay, by default 0 isn't exactly at the extremity, but if you play with the offset you can reposition it where it should be, okay, which is pretty cool. And if you animate, for instance, let's say the offset here, and if you go at the exact opposite extremity like this, okay, you could, for instance, add a trim pass on your stroke, and sorry, yes, this is it. So I can do a keyframe here on the start and animate it like this, and now you should be able to see a nice animation, which is pretty cool. So you could do it really easily with a new CC 2018 version of After Effects, but for all those who are still on CSX, CC 2050, 60, 17, you won't be able to do such a thing easily. So here is my turn to do it. Okay, and you have other shapes for cables, like 36. Okay, this is a USB cable. You have again another cable here, another one, and a jack, which is really cool too. So this is it. Pretty easy to use and pretty useful, I think. So let's redo it last time. So okay, let's show some other glyphs. You have a really nice way to create roller coasters, for instance, or train wagons. So if I want to do a roller coaster, I can do something like this, for instance. Sorry, this, and this, and this. I have created 4 different variations of it. And now, if I update the shape, just like this, and I could do a really big loop, like a real roller coaster, actually, which is way more fun. So okay, so I can go right here. I can go in my shape, duplicate the stroke, make a dashed line from it, like this. Okay. And I can let's say yes, something like this. I can do so this is really some design skills here. It doesn't have to do with my script. It's just some simple shape layers stroke design, but I wanted to show it to you. Okay, so let's add another one. Since we are on a black background, I can do something like this, actually. Yep, this is it. Okay, so I have a nice roller coaster base, and in my Moglyph tool I can go in the object. I can decrease the end, okay, to make each wagons kind of follow each other. Just like this, and I can transform the not the Y center, the position Y just a bit. Okay, just like this. And yes, you have now only to animate the offset. So pretty easy. You just have to create a few keyframes from here to here. Okay, pretty cool. So if I play the animation, here is what you have. Okay, nice. You can still okay, pretty cool. You can still make other cool stuff. In the glyph panel I have created as well some train wagon designs. So don't remove the glyphs from here directly. If you want to remove them, you have to first deploy the text subgroup here, and now you can remove the glyph 4, 3, 2, and 1 that I've created. Okay, and after that, and only after that, I can delete the one in the effects panel. Okay, so Now, if I re-click on my Moglyph cloner, and if I click on the Add New Glyph option, you will have other glyphs. So I can, for instance, show you a few train wagons. This one for the moment, this one, which is pretty cool, this one, and this one. Okay, so you can, for instance, randomize them with randomize. Okay, and again, you have a design that works automatically. Okay, pretty cool. So I will undo it again. What else can I show you in this spline cloner? You have some really nice organic shapes and some footprints. This one is this row is made with alternate signs. So if you click on this one, then on this one, you have an alternation of the glyphs, which is pretty cool. So for instance, if I will redo it from scratch to demonstrate it. So if I want to make a simple path of a people that has walked on a map, for instance, like let's say like in Harry Potter, for instance, you can select your shape layer, mask it, click on Moglyph C-Spline, Spline Cloner, click on your cloner, add new glyph, and click on this one, and then on this one, for instance, or let's undo it. I will create, this one is much cooler for me, so I will create this one and this one, for instance. Okay, and now all I have to do is to click on my Moglyph cloner spline, go to animate, go to plane, I reset it, and I will go to the parameters, visibility. I will make it 0 in the visibility, which is basically the opacity of all your clones, and I will play with the fall-off to make the compilation like, sorry, from 0 to 100, just like this. And as you can see, you have a really nice animation along a path that has been drawn with Bezier pen tool, which is, for me, really cool. Let's continue the spline demonstration. So again, I will click on the shape layer, I will draw a nice path, and I will show you a bunch of other shapes. So I will recreate a spline cloner again, click on add new glyph. This is always the Moglyph C spline, and I can choose, for instance, some nice natural shapes like this one, for instance, which is pretty cool. It mimics some seeds or some vegetal shapes, which are really nice, if you ask me. So for instance, I can, in my shape, make it green, and I can transform them to have the same green. Okay, and I can randomize, not iterate them, but randomize. Okay, and now I have some really cool design that occur. Okay, pretty cool. You can, even with the animate formula effector, if I reinitialize it, Okay, if I choose the end selection, parameters, transform, and yes, how cool is it? Okay, I will show you how to do this in a few moments. This is the really powerful effector called formula that allows you to affect one clones on one clones, two by two. Sorry. So, okay, in the same way, I can click on. I will undo this. Okay. Okay, so I can return in the generate tab, click on my Moglyph cloner, and click this time on this nice shapes here to create nice plants, or I can use the Eevee leaves that are really cool here. I can click on this, and maybe this and this. Okay, and I can change the fill color like this. I can recheck the visibility of my shape layer, take the same green, sorry, the same green I've said, okay, and I can do I can create more leaves like this, and I can of course not create them in a iterate mode but in a randomize mode. And nice, and now this is really cool, I can even crank it up even more, and I can click on my Moglyph clone spline and create a random effector in the animate tab like this, and I can go in the effector animation speed 0, so it remains perfectly still during time, and I can go to transform, zero out the position X and the position Y, play with the rotation, okay, perfect, and play with the skew if I want to. Okay, pretty cool. And I can play not with the transform but the color as well. I can, for instance, keep the colors from the cloner so it stays perfectly green, and just alterate a bit the hue, something like this, for instance. Okay, the fill brightness. Okay, perfect. And I can scale them with link dimension. I can scale them down a bit, so some of them will be bigger and some will be smaller, and play with the noise scale, for instance. So this is it. Okay, perfect, pretty cool. And now if I there is one last thing that I would like to show you, so I will create another one from scratch. So just, for instance, create something like this. I will hide him and I will select it, go in the generate, see spline, always spline cloner, click on my Moglyph cloner spline and add new glyph right here. And I wanted to show you the fish bones or spines that are here, since they are really cool. So I can click on this one, for instance, and let's say this, yes, this one is pretty cool. So I can do really cool thing with it. So for instance, I can add more on the count. Okay, something like this, for example. Okay, and I can animate them with step effector, which is pretty cool. So I will go at the frame 0 is important with the step effector. I can click on the step effector, and now you will be able to reshape with a step effector the overall arrangement with the graph here. To do it, just type U on your keyboard to show the two curve keyframes, and you can ease and ease them, and now you can play with the tangents in your curve editor, your graph editor. So I can do really cool thing just by doing something like this. Okay, pretty cool. So I can go in my parameter transform, scale Y, and not play with the visibility, so just go inside this one. Okay, and I can make my design travel along the path just by keyframe the offset. Okay, something like this. So how cool it is to be able to altern, to affect all your clones this way. Really nice, as you can see. Okay, I will go later on the animate tab and all the effectors in the second part of the tutorial, so don't worry about this. I wanted just to show you a bunch of C-spline glyphs. Okay, so to finish the add new glyph panel, I want to show you a bunch of other ones. So for example, I will choose the directional and click on the, let's say, linear cloner. Okay, I will reset it. Okay, and the Moglyph directional font has been designed to give you a bunch of simple shapes like rounded rectangles, capsules, arrows, and other cool nice designs, like for instance these shapes. Okay, I will undo it. There were some nice, let's say, some cool things like this. You can do crazy things with just these nice glyphs. Like for instance, I can use this little glyphs, for instance, to achieve a kind of DNA design. So to do it, I can just go right here inside the text layer. I can activate the 3D per character, and there is one thing that I haven't shown you. You can't play with X and Y rotation directly with the effect, since I couldn't do it without deleting it if it pass by 2D to 3D, so sorry for the explanations, it's not clear, but I couldn't add it in the pseudo effects for some technical reasons. So you can still, since it's simply a native After Effects text layer, you can simply go ahead inside your text layer, deploy your text group, find your cloner transform, and add the property you want if it's not right here. So if I click on rotation, you do not even have to do it, since as you can see, as soon as I have activated the 3D per character, I can then just go inside the cloner transform, and as you can see, X and Y are already there, but there weren't any expression in this. But you can do something like this. This is the X rotation, sorry. So something like this. Okay. Oh, sorry, I am in the cloner transform, so it corresponds to the transform group. So this isn't the good one, but if you take the Moglyph cloner, oh yes, it is a per step transform that I need. Okay, the per step transform. The per step transform is in the cloner linear index. So this is where you'll find all that you want regarding the Moglyph cloner linear. So cloner linear index, it concerns all the per step transforms. So you have already the position, the scale, the rotation for the Z, but not for the X. But if you do it manually on the X rotation, as you can see, you are already creating a nice DNA like this. And if you crank up the number of clones, just like this, for instance, and play with the position X to have less space between your clones, you are now creating a nice real 3D DNA design. So keep that in mind. It's not that intuitive, but keep that in mind. Moglyph cloner setups are just based on native After Effects cloners. So you can, at each moment, whenever you want, you can go inside your subgroups, inside your text group, and add your own properties if there aren't there already. So this is it for the directional. You can play with other type of cloners, like for instance the radial one, and play with some arrows, for instance, like this, and you can create more clones and go inside here and play with the rotation. And for example, you could just with it go inside the animate tab and click on, let's say, the delay effector, and now you have a really cool motion created exclusively by the effector delay. And I can go into the parameters, transform. I do not want the rotation to be affected, but I want the position wire. Okay, I can go inside the color, don't affect the brightness, and now I have a really nice motion just like this. Okay, again, I do not show the effectors right now because there are so much to say about them, but I will come later to it in the second part. So this is it for the directional glyph. So let's finish with the iconic outline. So I will create a grid, for instance. Sorry, I will select the iconic outline, click on the grid, and now I can add with the glyph panel one of these really nicely designed glyphs, like for instance the folder closed, open, and go inside the clones. I do not want to iterate, but to randomize it. And now you have a really cool design in seconds. I can still play with the gap, the X gap, the Y gap, okay, which is pretty nice. If I do not want the outline version, I can simply, without changing the add new glyph panel, I can simply change, since it's just a native text layer, the font in the character panel. So I can, for instance, click on the Moglyph iconic solid, and now, as you can see, all my glyphs have been turned from outlined to solid. There are a bunch of exceptions where the iconic outline and the iconic solid aren't exactly the same, but in general I've tried my best to have the same glyphs from one to the other, okay, which is pretty cool. So this is it for the iconic shapes. You have just to re-show you briefly. Okay, you have some nice page, stars, telephone, device, Google Maps, prints, vehicles, which is pretty nice too, a few leaves, which is nice to create organic plant designs onto splines, for instance, cursors, OS logos, okay, earths, drops, which is cool too, diamonds, really cool shapes from Font Awesome. And a last one that I wanted to show you is the people. I can select the people, for instance, and click on the honeycomb, for instance, and I can now show you the add new glyph panel, and you have, as you can see, a lot of variations of the same human being glyphs, which is pretty nice. You have each time the couple of the man and the woman, in each style you want. So for instance, I will go for the minimalist stylish one here for the man, and this one for the woman. I can again choose not to iterate them perfectly, but to have a randomized arrangement of them, which is pretty cool. If I do not want this particular design, I can still change the number here in the glyph sliders, and I have now an alternate way of displaying this one and this one. If I want, for instance, profile, a simple icon for a profile, I can choose, for example, the glyph 41 and 42. Okay, 41, 42. Okay, perfect, pretty nice. I can still change the randomization with the seed here, or I can iterate them. Pretty cool. And you have some smiley with happy and happy and so on. So this is it for the different glyph fonts that come with the tool. I will end with the really last one, which is called Motext custom font, because it's really different from the others. As you can see, if I create, so let's remove this one. If I create, for instance, with this Motext custom font here, a cloner from here, as you can see, the button add new glyph is grayed out and isn't active anymore. So if you want to understand what Motext custom font is, it's just a way to allow you to type in your own letters or your own glyph fonts that don't come with the Moglyph pack. Okay, so for instance, if I choose for, let's say in my character panel, if I say, let's choose a nice Bebas Neuer, for instance. If I click now on, let's say, linear cloner, okay, I will center it. Now you have this nice text that is showing up and that says replace this text. So now all you have to do is to double click on this text layer and type your own text. So I can say, for instance, this kind of text, okay, which is pretty cool, since now you can go inside your Moglyph cloner. All the options that deal with the cloning, like clones, iterate, randomize, and seed and count, won't affect your design. But if you go inside your first type transform, for instance, and if you go inside your here in the position Y, and can still play with the spacing just like this. And the cool thing is that since each letter is considered like a glyph, you can now go to animate and use the effector that comes with the tool, just like this. For instance, I can use the formula on top of this one, and now just to let you know what it does, okay, you can animate really easily with the effector you choose from here, your own text with the font of your choice, which is pretty cool. You can make some nice title animations and benefits from the effectors of my tool. Another cool way to use it is to choose some glyph fonts. So for instance, I can choose glyph fonts, which is not designed by me, like this one, which is cool, called WVC Resus B Italic, and it's a kind of splatters font. So if I create, for instance, Spline, like this, okay, I will hide it, I click on it, I select the spline, and since I have chosen the Motex custom font, it will be based on the font that is right here in the character. So if I click on the spline cloner, now I have this nice, these really nice shapes along my path, and which is really cool, since you can now animate this with the effectors. So I can click on the Moglyph cloner spline, go to animate tab and click on the plane effector. I can still go in the fall off, just and check the colors from cloners, and not affect the position, and just play with the visibility. For instance, I can just zero it out. The visibility, I remind you, is just the opacity in After Effects, and you can still play with the fall off just like this by keyframing this completion from or completion to property. So now you have a really simple animation that is bounded onto your own drawn path, which is pretty cool. You can, for instance, edit the points, the tangents, and your splatters, for instance, will follow the shape. So you can imagine whatever you want. You can, for instance, not use some splatters fonts that it comes from dafont.com, but you can use, for instance, musical symbols like notes. You can use some mathematical glyphs. You can use runes or esoteric, fantastic symbols, and so on, which is pretty nice. So this is what more text does. It's really easy to understand, since it's even easier than the add new glyph panel. Just type in and you are good to go. So I can edit it and play with the characters to type in what I want. Keep in mind that if you choose more text custom font, and I choose, for instance, mono font, I can still click on the Radial cloner too. But this is pretty weird if you do such a thing, because you won't be able to have exactly a natural text, because you won't have the control over the count, since the count is the text source length. So the value won't be tweakable as easily as if it wasn't a custom font. So keep that in mind. If you want to use a real text font, I strongly advise you to keep the linear mode or the grid mode for the multi-line paragraphs, for instance, which is cool, but not that much the radial one, which is a bit strange. So this is it for the procedural way to create some glyphs. I just want to show you a last thing, which is the manual glyph cloning mode. As you can see, all we have done until now is to play with the procedural mode. So it means that you let the cloners decide for you how to arrange, how to choose which shape you want at which place. Okay, iterate or randomized. Keep in mind too that more text is not really procedural, it's manual, but I have made it available in both, so you haven't to bother with all this technical stuff. So I will show you now what manual does. So I will take the Moglyph basic geometry, click on the manual mixed editable font, and I will explain a bit later what exactly it means. So I will create, for the sake of this tutorial, a simple linear cloner. Click on no, and now, as you can see, if I choose add new glyph, so I have to select my cloner linear, I will reset it, I will click on just 1, I can't do 0, okay, I just have to do 1, okay, and if I click on add new glyph, each glyph on which you will click will be added to a sentence. So I will, for instance, click on this nice star, a pentagon, a circle, a cross, and this one, and as you can see, I am creating my my own sentence made up with the sequence of glyphs that I want. So each time I click on it, I add it at the very end of my glyph sentence. Okay? So keep in mind that even if you have some graphics, you have in fact some text layers with characters. So consider it like a sentence. Okay? So I will redo it because it's not that clear for the moment. So I am in the manual mode. I click on the Moglyph basic geometry. I will click on this one. I will click on yes to center it like this. I will reset it to make it perfectly horizontal. And now if I choose add new glyph, let's say I have a first one that will be a plus sign. As you can see, the plus sign will come at the very end of my sentence. Okay, I can click then on the this one, for instance, and this one, and as you can see, I have decided exactly what I wanted here. Okay, by pressing the glyph that I want, and it won't be duplicated at all. Okay, this is up to you. You have to select the glyph that you want and that will be contained into your whole sentence. Okay, so you have to double click on your text. This is why it's called editable font, and you have to remove all the glyphs that have been created initially by the Moglyph cloner linear. So all the other ones are the ones that I have created after with the manual mode. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can now play with the object, go to the count and update this with the count. So if you do not want to bother with this, you can make a simple expression on this count here. You can alt click on it and you can search for the source text and go right here, dot length. Sorry, length is just like this. So now you don't have to do something like this. Okay, it will update automatically. So on the count, you can just type text.source text.length. Okay, it will count up the glyph that you have. So now if I re-click on my cloner, if I want to add even more specific glyphs from my font, I can click on add new glyph, and now I can, for instance, click on this one and 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 this one, and as you can see, I can really choose which clone I want exactly. So I can still use my effectors, for instance. So it's really a nice way to do such a thing. Okay, hope it's clear enough. You won't use manual that often, to be honest, but you know now that it exists. So it's really cool. You can use it for anything you want. You can, for instance, use it to make nice infographics or nice titles with some other of the fonts. And yeah, this is it. This is the manual, and it's said mixed editable font because in fact you could mix and match any of the fonts between them. So for instance, if I click on the linear, I will click on no, I will redo my magical expression here. So text so now I can go right here and go inside the add new glyph. Okay, double click on it, remove them, and now you can add your this one, maybe this one. I love this way that these 3 circles appear, but now I want to add an arrow from the directional. Well, I can do it. I can simply go in my Moglyph cloner, change the font by the directional, where I know that there is an arrow. And now, if I click on the Add New Glyph, a message will pop up that explains you how to deal with this. And if I click OK, all my glyphs have been changed by the Moglyph directional. So that's not a really problem. You know that the 3 first glyphs are made normally with the basic geometry. But now I can add the arrow that I want, this one for instance, and maybe this one. And now, since this is a manual editable font, I can still select the 3 first characters and replace in the character panel the Moglyph directional by Moglyph basic geometry. And now I have retrieved exactly what I wanted, which is pretty cool. It's not that intuitive. It's even a bit difficult to deal with multiple fonts, especially if you have a lot of glyphs from different fonts, but it's still possible if you know how to do it, and that's how you do it. Okay, so this is it. It was the manual mixed editable font, but in 99% of the cases you will probably still use the procedural way to generate your clones. So I have finished the generate tab, so this is it. I really hope that it opens you a new world of possibilities, and that my explanations were clear enough. So regarding all the effectors stuff, I will do another part with just the animate tab. So don't worry if you didn't understood all the effectors parts of this first tutorial. I will explain all this in another part in another tutorial. So hope you like it, hope it's clear enough, and see you in the second part of the tutorial. Bye!